Do you have fear of rejection? Well, if you do, this week's podcast is all for you because fear of rejection is the one thing that I believe stops you being a successful mortgage broker, stops you building the mortgage broker business that you want to build, and that is fear of rejection. And so that's this week's podcast. That's why this week's podcast is all about fear of rejection. You're listening to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast with me, Craig Skelton, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. Hi and welcome back to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast. This week's podcast is all about fear of rejection, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because fear of rejection, as I said, is the one thing that I believe stops mortgage brokers being successful. And the thing is, fear of rejection is a natural thing. It is built within all of us. We've all have that instinct to be liked. So you want to be liked as a human being. So what you've got to do is work out how you're going to get over that and create new habits for yourself. And how do I get over it? How do I believe you should get over fear of rejection? Is just by taking action, creating new habits, creating the right habits. That's how I would get over fear of rejection, because if you do have fear of rejection, you will spend so much time, you will waste so much time as a mortgage broker worrying about it rather than actually getting on with it. Whatever the task will be, or whatever the task is, which we'll come on to, you'll spend more time worrying about it. You'll overthink it, guaranteed. You'll sort of give yourself all the reasons why you shouldn't be doing it, all the reasons not to do what you want to do. And you'd be thinking all the things that could happen, all the things that could go wrong, and you're playing out all those scenarios in your head. That's what you will do. And when you've got over your fear of rejection and take action, what happens is that it's not quite as bad as what you thought it was going to be. So that's why I wanted to pick up on the podcast today. And what I want to do is look at three things with regards to fear of rejection. The first thing is the choices that you have. And then I want to look at then the results from that choice you make. And also then the thirdly is the reward based on that choice you made. So that's what I want to look at today. So the first thing to look at is the choices. And to be honest with you, the choices are pretty simple. You either do take action or you don't take action. And not taking action because of your fear of rejection, that's something that I want to sort of talk about, because it is as simple as that. It's not taking action because of fear of rejection. You'll keep saying that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I want to do this and I want to do that. And you'll blame someone else for doing it, or you'll blame something, or I haven't got time to do this, or I haven't got time to do that, for not taking action. Or the option two is taking action. So when you look at what stops you from taking action, it's fear of rejection. It's sort of thinking about something that you want to do and thinking fear of rejection has stopped you doing that. So what I wanted to do when we look at the choices, just talk about a couple of things that are real in mortgage brokers' lives right now that has fear of rejection or gives fear of rejection. Which the first one is content and creating content for social media, because people know they want to do it, know they need to do it, understand what they need to do, but fear of rejection keeps stopping them from doing it. So, and I want to look at why that happens, because generally it's because, and the feedback that I get is, people have fear of rejection because they're worried about what people will think. They're worried about putting themselves out there and giving that vulnerability side of things. They're worried about what people are going to say. So when you look at that and you really look at that and think, you're worried about what people will think, can you control what other people think? No, you can't. Can you control what other people say? No. So if that is stopping you from taking action, that is giving you fear of rejection, you need to get hold of that right now and turn that around and actually take action for yourself, because it's something you want to do and truly believe in something you want to do. Then get rid of that fear of rejection and take action. And when you look at taking action, so when we look at creating content, for example, your first take won't be the best. The first recording you do, the first video you do, the first audio you do, it will not be your best, but it's the best one you've done so far. So, and then build on that from there, build that momentum. But the good news is you've taken that first step. And what is the worst can happen? When you create content, put yourself out there and build your own brand, what is the worst that can happen? Just have a think about that and put that into real thoughts in your mind of what is the worst can happen. Think also things like following up on a lead that you hasn't sort of picked up on yet, or and you've not managed to speak to. Again, I've talked a lot about following up until you tell to F off. That's sort of not having that fear of rejection, because again, if you've tried to contact that client and you've not managed to speak to them yet, and it's been further down the line and you're still trying to get a hold of that lead, if fear of rejection is stopping you from ringing that cold lead now or ringing that person up, then why is that the case? Again, fear of rejection will stop you from making that call, and taking action is going to get you no worse off than what you was before. So just think about that picking up the phone to somebody that you've not spoke to before, that was a lead initially that you've not managed to speak to, and you're still being persistent and still chasing it down. Are you worse off by picking up the phone and trying them again? No, you're not. Or are you worse off if you actually get to speak to that person and it's still a no? Are you worse off for taking action, or are you better off for taking action? Now, I would say you're better off for taking action, because if you've got to speak to them, speaking to a client, a potential client who you don't convert into business, you will learn from that. And if you speak to them and you get a no, at least it's a no. That's a positive that you've got a no. So at least you finally can get closure on that lead and know that you've got a no. So again, when you're ringing these people up, what is the worst that can happen? I also see this with regards to protection with mortgage brokers, because again, fear of rejection with regards to protection aspect of their role. So the mortgage brokers, they're great at being mortgage brokers, talking about the nice things with clients, the homes and all the things like that, and the houses and the things that the mortgage is going to create. But what they're not very good at is then signposting that, switching that, and thinking, right, I've got to talk about protection right now. And do you set that up consciously or subconsciously that you're not ready to handle a fear of rejection? Because again, a customer could say no to that. They've contacted you about the mortgage, they need a mortgage, but they may not see that they need protection. So again, it's your role to cover that and your role to talk about that with a client. So you cannot stop doing that just because you've got fear of rejection, because they might say that they're shopping around. They might tell you no. They might say they found it somewhere else. That's okay. At least you'll know and understand, but you've still gone through the process of getting over your fear of rejection. So the choices that you have are your choice, and it is your choice, and only you can make that choice. You either continue with your fear of rejection, or you get over your fear of rejection and start to take action. So the second thing to look at is getting over fear of rejection and the results that you will get from that. So if you don't do it and don't take action, and you didn't do it, do you have regret further down the line that you didn't do it? How will you feel at the end of the day, knowing that you've got to ring that client or ring that lead or create some content or get in front of the camera and create some content? And if you haven't done that, how will you feel? Will you feel as though you regretted? Will you tell yourself you can do it tomorrow? Will you sort of take comfort that you haven't done it? Will you blame somebody else for not reason doing it? Have you shuffled some papers to stop you from doing it? How will you feel when you haven't done it and achieved something you wanted to achieve? And the reverse of that is when you look at the results, how will you feel when you do it? How will you feel when you've got over that fear of rejection? Will you be a better mortgage broker? Absolutely. Will you be a better person? Absolutely. Will you learn from taking action? Well, yeah, you will, because you've taken yourself out of the comfort zone, you've gone past the fear of rejection, and you've taken action. So you're going to learn from that. You will be a better mortgage broker. You will have a better mortgage broker business because you've taken action and got over your fear of rejection. And you will have better results. Guaranteed you will have better results. So the last thing to look at is reward. So how will you personally feel when you've got over that fear of rejection? So when I'm talking about reward, I don't necessarily mean reward as in giving yourself something financially or giving you some sort of physical, tangible reward. And if you want to do that, that's fine. You can, like, if that's the way that you want to reward yourself for getting over your fear of rejection, then that's fine. That's okay. That's personal to you, and that's you've set that reward. Or you might want to reward yourself with and how you personally feel. So how good you feel when you've won, how good you feel when you succeed, how good you feel when you've overcome that challenge yourself and taking yourself out of that comfort zone and worked on your fear of rejection. So fast forward past the action and then look back, and will you feel better about yourself because you took action? Absolutely you will. And so you could look at setting yourself goals and rewards for getting over your fear of rejection. It could be a case of creating content, thinking, right, okay, I want to create one piece of content this week, and I'm going to reward myself by doing this, by taking Friday afternoon off, or not doing this or not doing that. That's fine. However it wants to look for you, whatever motivates you, set those goals, set the reward, and get yourself motivated to do it. And so that will help you start on those small steps to creating content or making those calls or taking yourself out of comfort zone and getting over that fear of rejection. Because it's all about small steps, creating habit. You're not going to sit here today thinking, right, I need to create 10 pieces of video content for my social media. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't think, right, I'm going to create 10 pieces. You think, right, let's start with the one. Let's start to create habits, small steps, and get the one right. And then one becomes two, becomes three, becomes four. It's then about building those steps. But what you've also got to do is you will retrain, not retain, but retrain your brain by the results. So what I mean by that is if you're picking up a call or you're doing something that's taken out of your comfort zone because of your fear of rejection, and your brain's automatically, if you're going from security to insecurity, your brain's automatically going to think, oh, I'm not comfortable with this. It's not like preparing myself for pain because of what's going to happen. That's naturally going to happen. But then once you do that, and you create content, pick up that call, do whatever you say you're going to do, get over your fear of rejection, and then your brain realizes and you realize it's not that bad, that will give you confidence to do it again. And it will also give you confidence in everything you do, because it will then consciously and subconsciously give you confidence if you get over your fear of rejection. And then so it's about retraining your brain to deal with that, and once it realizes it's not that bad, you're more likely to do it again, and then celebrate on that success as well. So think about the reward, celebrate what good looks like for you and what the reward looks like as well to keep you motivated. And wrapped around all that with regards to fear of rejection is, what's the worst that can happen? What is the worst that can happen by you putting content out there? What is the worst that can happen picking up that phone? What is the worst that can happen that you start to that client about protection and talk about the not nice things? What is the worst that can happen? So just think about that for a moment. So just to recap, fear of rejection is a very natural thing. You have to retrain your brain to get over that fear of rejection. You have two choices. You either do it and take action, or you don't take action. Focus on the results, focus on how that feels when you achieve the results, and focus on the reward. And the takeaway for me is that in order to build the mortgage broker business that you want, in order to be the mortgage broker that you want to be, you've got to get over your fear of rejection and what is the worst that can happen. Thank you for listening to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. If you have any questions about this podcast or any topics you want us to discuss, or if you're interested in working with me further, then please get in touch.